Hi people, welcome to Blu UKJazzdance. I want to talk about me going back to university. I went back to university because I wanted to learn the ability to develop my own projects on a level, on a higher level. Arts management, so I did arts management, administration, business management. And part of that I did 3 honours, I did a HND, and part of that I did honours in arts, careers, employability. I did arts research methods, and I did arts and community. My involvement has been in arts and community. Arts and community today is very much changed, about regeneration, creating jobs, working in harmony with a whole host of networks internationally, to homegrown grassroots organisations who are trying to develop better harmony within communities, and that partly is creating careers and employment, or networking with people who can help support the positive development of innovative programs within communities. And so what's happening is the art's been used as a tool. In the UK, the arts has been used as a tool for many years for leadership skills, management skills, to give people opportunities to explore issues in non-threatening ways. And if you know anything about me from ages ago, from a long time ago, from 1981, I made a mission statement to promote the positive images and energy of my African culture, heritage, arts and its wider uses, because that's, you know, what we happen as an individual. We African diaspora people have used dance for health, for well-being, for creating harmony in communities already. So thousands and thousands of years till to date, we've used our arts for personal development, career development of individuals. That's what we've used it as an individual, and we used it for research, you know, engaging in research to see how we can use it in wider ways. And we've done that for thousands of years because dance was used as a rites of passage. And dance for me as an individual is important because I was a special education needs child, wrongly diagnosed as a slow learner, I was dyslexic for 41 years. And basically I talk about how the arts helped me to deal with the struggles I had till I reached success as an individual, because I was written off in a society where there was extreme racism. So I was facing racial trauma, I was facing violent bullying, trauma. I was facing traumas of being written off in my school by teachers, written off by pupils and their parents. I was treated in a negative way as an individual. And as an individual, I had to make a stand for myself, that I have to get up and stand and protect myself. That was one thing, most important thing. And I had to make a decision. I was struggling with my educational development. I had to make a stand that I need to put some solutions into place. My parents put things into place, but at the same time, I had to say to myself, my parents ain't going to be with me. And one thing that African diaspora parents who come from impoverished backgrounds, they talk a lot about, we will not be with you because we're out working, because we were the latchkey children. So use your time constructively to better yourself. What we can do is give you self-help books, get you to self-help programs, because that's what my parents did from 8 years old to 26. I had a private tutor, and he was an amazing man. He was an African diaspora brother, that's the first of all, who made me understand that if he can do it, I can do it. But he told me I could do it as well, and I believed in everything that he said. As I mean, but what I had was strong parents who gave me aspirations, and I wanted to share that with individuals. People assume that because a person comes from a rich and wealthy background that they're confident. That's not the case. And that they go about their lives of great leaders. That's not the case neither. There has to be something that the parents entrench in them from the day one. And what you can have overbearing parents, you can have parents that are so in the leadership, you have to live up to their leadership, that the child doesn't live up to leadership because not feel confident that they can do so. My parents taught me leadership skills. My parents taught me management skills. From we were very young, we got taught social etiquette, we got taught to self-manage ourselves. The home is important, so everybody had to do a job within the home to keep the home together. My parents come from a farming environment. My dad was from Jamaica. Mum's great, never had an education, but they taught me values that enabled me to surpass other individuals. They gave me a hard work ethic. They taught me the importance of having hobbies for your health and well-being, etc. Particularly music and dance, because that you can't beat these two. Music and dance are free, and we can't beat these two hobbies in respect to looking after your health and well-being. Now, one of the key things I shared with individuals, that I got involved in developing what is called UKJazzdance. UKJazzdance is an umbrella term for a number of UK underground jazz dance styles. It's unique to Britain lifestyle. and it's different in the north, south, east, and west. And very much from young, I was politicized, and I'm definitely the #1 politicized UK jazz dance leader there is. And I'm one of the individuals who, from a long time ago, and you will hear me talk about it, I started to do programs through what is called cultural exchanges. People came to Britain. I was one of the leaders in my community that was used to share with people our arts and to break stereotypes about our culture. Now, one of the key things I want to talk about UK jazz dance here, I want to share with people something that's important. What happened was, amazingly, there's been a pure misrepresentation has taken place about UK jazz dance because people are not dance educators. Many of the people that wrote in UK jazz dance are commercial minded people. But at the same time, people are ignorant and they have not looked to find information about the heritage. One of the stereotypes I want to break, that before UK jazz dance came about, African diaspora people who invented this art form were already dancing to jazz, because it was 50s and 60s born were the key individuals that shaped this art form. That's what people really need to understand. And it was jazz that was the derivative music that was coming out from our communities. There was jazz and derivative music, all influenced by jazz. The fashion was jazz. In the communities was jazz. Jazz was politicized and was influencing everything that we did. And within the mainstream society, 50s and 60s jazz was influencing everything. From the 30s, it was influencing everything in the society and globally. If you went anywhere in the world, jazz was there. That's as simple as it is. And what happened as an individual, I created my own theatrical jazz dance from the age of 1972, which is important. And then what happened in 1975, UK jazz dance started to develop. Do you know what I'm saying? And then what happened, then there came new jazz dance, which was 1980. I mean 1990, that happened. And I was the leader and pioneer of all these things. So I developed my own style of what is called soft shoe shuffle. Indirectly, what happened, I was watching television. We had access to television, which influenced what we did. We saw different types of movies. We saw vaudeville. We never knew what vaudeville dancing was. We knew the difference between vaudeville and Broadway. Yeah? We saw ballet. We saw contemporary. We saw modern dance. We never knew, when we saw Stormy Weather, the film, we never knew that we were seeing African American modern dance with Catherine Dunham, which was totally different from European modern dance. So that film itself, that film had the best artists at the time who were dancers, do you understand? But that was only a tip of it. There was millions of dancers that we have seen. We've seen physical comedy, but we didn't see black physical comedy, do you understand? But that film was a musical comedy anyway. Stormy Weather had aspects of that. So we saw humour. I saw a film called Cabin in the Sky where I saw family life. It's not a positive film, but what happened was, when you saw this film, as a child you don't understand politically what that film's about. But what happened, you saw images of your black parents in working together with a father, etc. You could relate to the film straight away. That film influenced me and changed my life. Totally. And it led to me studying John Bubbles, one of the greatest improvisational tap dancers there could be, and I started to study him as an individual. But that came later on. And that's one of the key things I want to share with people. But I was dancing first, theatrical jazz dance, from musicals, etc. Now, one of the key things I was unaware to that time, we were copying black, white artists, because that's what he saw mainly. So Freddie Astaire was one of my major influences, as well as Gene Kelly. We all got influenced them, unaware they were influenced by African diaspora dancers. So what happened was, Gene Kelly I love, always loved him, but I was unaware that he got trained by John Bubbles, the dancer I saw later on, because they have a similar style. And I said that, oh, these looked the same. But what happens, amazingly, I found out through history that he got taught by John Bubbles, and many other people in Hollywood were trained by black dancers. What people don't know about Hollywood, the black dancers, or the white dancers, were being taught by the best black tap dancers. That's what people don't know. And the black tap dancers are making big money in Hollywood. Yeah, so they were the key things. So there's one piece called Bojangles, for example, with Freddie Astaire. It was John Bubbles that trained Freddie Astaire to be involved in it. Do you understand? It's important that people understand. Anyway, cut long story short, basically I just want to give people an insight that I have a legacy of leadership, and I went back to university as an individual to improve how I articulated my leadership because I didn't have the knowledge to do that at the highest level, because I'm still dancing. It's a very competitive industry, and what happens is you want to be on point. You want to make sure that you're providing information, which is important for me as a political person, to provide the best information in the best way that I can do. And at university, marketing oneself is now, you have to be in technology, one of the key things. And what happens is you have to know your own legacy. You have to know what your legacy is. The legacy of achievements, the legacy of benefits, contributions and development. My longest legacy would be definitely stay in power. I'm the last keeper of the flame of UK jazz dance styles. And what happened, you have to understand, I've been through all the genres I talked about, theatrical dancing to dance floor jazz dancing to new jazz dance leadership training. I created my own training courses independently for myself. I created my own centre of advanced training for myself. And what's happening now at the moment, there's no culture in Manchester. So I'm travelling, and that you understand, every culture in the city had its own culture, and even just area to area, we've lost that in Manchester. So I've merged that in my home where I am. I merged them ideas and kept alive the thoughts, because I want to develop myself, my own self, my own one-man show around that. One of the key things, it's hard to teach this art form to others because it needs a vast amount of knowledge, and it's organic. It was different yesterday as it is today. Do you understand? It's totally, by the nature of it's organic, you're always learning new information. You have to understand that UK jazz dance was just pure misrepresentation, and what happened, in more heritage knowledge is coming to me now, more global. So what happened, the internet changed me totally in sense of respect of my leadership, because it gave me insight into dance floor jazz dance in the past, theatrical jazz dance in the past, and new jazz dance that came from 1990, because I saw what people were doing. Do you understand? When I went to university 05, 09, what I was disheartened because what I saw from a global perspective, the new development of the dance is that people are cloning and not understanding. They're cloning a person's spirit, a person's personality and character, and they don't know that person. So people, there's moves I see, I know the dancers that created that move. And what happened, people didn't know the whole art form was, we were coming off the back of modern jazz, back of bebop. You must show your own personality and character. Don't clone. I worked with some of the best dancers in history. Your job was to make sure you found your own virtuosity, your own ideas of learning. It wasn't even like tap dance. The dancers developed, copied each other and developed, and you had some of that in our culture book as a pioneer. Because many people that dance, that are champions but they're not pioneers, they're innovators. They stole, and that's how we talked about it. They stole other people's spirits. Then there was people that reflected their own spirit, and I'm one of them. I reflected my own spirit in my dance because I got nurtured, and that's what the Nicholas brothers did. The Nicholas brothers took aspirations, and that's what the people do. That's how people grow. So I'm not going to put it down and mimic, but the father encouraged him, son, find your own voice, find your own style. You have your own voice and style, because the dance had a role and responsibility. It was to shape your own free-spiritedness. If you're copying others, then who are you? That's why some people lost. People mimic other people. So that's the difference between a singer and a person that does your covers. Do you understand? Find your own style. And that was the importance. My parents taught me, my father taught me, my mum taught me, and my dad's gone now, but he had his own style, my father. He was unique. My mum's unique. And my dad's Jamaican, mum's Grenadian, and their personalities are very unique. And they seek to have that. And that was partly entrenched in who they have, and I call it DSJ, Dancing Spirit of Jazz. You remember, people grew up going to tailors and dressmakers. They didn't want the same dress as anybody else. That's the history our parents grew up. Clothes had a relationship to their values. So my dad came here, he looked for tailor-made suits. He's not going to off the rack. Do you understand? They're into tailor-made suits. Get your cloth, this is the style I want. Give my style a little difference, and that's what a tailor did. Do you understand? Well, that was the same in education. That's called independent thinking. So me dressing in the clothes I wear, the symbolism. So I'm wearing blue. Blue keeps you calm. Blue skies. That's how it all happened. That's where Blu UKJazzdance comes from. It means many different things. Do you understand? But I know what it means. There's a significance behind me wearing blue. Has everybody got that? It calms you down. Blue skies. Because what happened, I came back looking, researching UK jazz dance and identifying, you know, this art form has impossible possibilities for it, because I've used it in a wide range of ways, yeah, as an individual once I've been in it. And I said, look, I've been involved in theatrical jazz dance leadership, dance for jazz dance leadership, and new jazz dance leadership training, my own, as a pioneer, because I trained myself first. And what happened, as I said, there's no culture in Manchester, there's no culture that is similar to my culture. So I kept that culture alive in my own environment every day. So my laptop is, I can't tell anybody how my laptop, I love it 24/7, because basically I want to learn the styling. I never copied Lindy Hop, but I done Lindy Hop. I did tap and learnt tap, but my job, I realized, was I just used that to understand how I can develop my own self. So people say, how come you're not doing Lindy Hop? How are you not doing? I said it wasn't about that. That's dance for their time. Every dancer, I'm an urban griot. I dance jazz for my time. And my time is, we didn't have no social tap dancing on the corner. We didn't have no social Lindy Hop. And our dance is to develop our social dancing. Now my social dancing is UK jazz dance, and what is not happening in my city is happening in other places. So I prepare myself to be involved in my true environment of what's happening from a perspective of social dancing. Do you understand? But what happens is, through the learning, pushing the boundaries of learning, training, development, you find alternative ways of developing what you're learning. So what happened, people now recognize that, do you know that jazz, if you listen to jazz music, it actually relaxes you. So that's a new development of jazz. Yeah, in the health environment, they would use that. So it raises your consciousness, listen to jazz. If you study jazz, you guaranteed that you will mature as a person. You become more of a humanitarian. You'll learn the history of race. It's important. You learn the history, of inventions. You learn the history of modernism. You learn the history of pre-slavery, great African kingdoms. You learn the history of the Moors in Europe, the Moors in Britain. You learn the history of the Romans. You learn the history of where did the attention to detail come from. Comes from jazz. You learn the history of people using satire from their communities to mimic the bourgeoisie, because that's how the waltz was taken by Africans, diaspora individuals, and created into new dances like Lindy Hop, like mambo jazz, like salsa. That all started with the African diaspora people mimicking the masters, the rich masters. It was part of satire, and it was confused. The mimicking was confused as, oh, they're sad, they want to be rich, so that's why they're copying the rich. But that's not what it was. It was mimicking. And the prime example where that's shown is in Carnival. Carnival did the same thing. Yeah, Carnival was about, how it started was the poor were mimicking their masters, because satire was in African culture, but African culture wasn't recognized, you see. The high level of science and technology wasn't recognized, and I talk about it today. And it's the same, I talk about, where did I get the development to develop my own theatrical jazz dance style, develop my own dance floor jazz dance leadership, a new jazz dance leadership, my theatrical jazz dance leadership. Where did I get that skill at 8 years old to write my own play, compose my own music, do my own singing, stand up among individuals, tell them jokes? And where did I get that? I got that from my own DNA. We already had a high level of performing arts, so we call it, but ours was different. You know what I mean? We had a rites of passage in dance. You have to understand. We had a rites of passage in storytelling. We had a rites of passage in music. That's what people understand. That was integral to who we are, because we understood the benefits to our health, our well-being, our cognition, our understanding of the world. Do you understand? So if you go back to African traditional dance, you see that they copied animals. That's where gymnastics came from. And so what we're in the West, we do oh, look at the gymnastics, but never, that's not how it happened. It was all societies copied animals, insects, drew wisdom from them. Do you understand what I'm saying? They drew wisdom from elements in nature, and African diaspora culture had this down to a T. Do you know what I'm saying? Other cultures, Asian culture, great Asian communities drew upon nature. If you look around the world, all cultures drew upon nature to develop their understanding of the world. They had to, because that's the only way they could understand. So they drew upon wisdoms. What were insects doing? So we have it here. Remember, scientists study insects to see what they can learn and how they can adapt what they've learned into everyday life. So you talk about busy as bees, you know, that sort of saying. It's important to people to understand. Well, the Africans had mastered that from day one. It's important, and they mastered it in a time when the world was no television. Cosmology was huge. They mastered it, connecting. Our culture was one of holistic, so it wasn't separate. You got cosmology, physiology, psychology. That wasn't around, but these type of subjects were connected as one. You didn't go to university and study psychology only. No, they studied. So, example, you would study a person from a social perspective, a physical perspective, an intellectual perspective, a cultural perspective, a creative perspective, emotional, spiritual. You study a person from them perspective. That's the aspects of what you call child learning. The child has has to have something called spices of life: social development, physical, intellectual, cultural, cross-cultural, creative, emotional, and spiritual. That is spirit, mind, and body. So that incorporates spirit, mind, and body. Do you understand? And what do they say about spirit, mind, and body? Is what you call true health. They don't say just spirit. They say spirit, mind, and body brings about health. That's how the Africans use their art, and that's how I use my art for myself as an individual. My art forms, being a theatrical jazz dance leader, dance floor jazz dance leader, new jazz dance leader, enhanced, boosted my health and well-being, because it gave me a positive image of who I was. I was a child who had low self-esteem at first and a low self-image because of my undiagnosed dyslexia. When I started to understand, I got a private teacher. Boom, he made me understand it's cool to have, you can grow whatever. Then I got more confident. But doing my activities that boosted, made me feel good, putting positive chemicals into body like endorphins. What happened? It made me feel good. Then meeting other people made me feel good. But I had a skill for this. I showed I had talent in it. I showed I had gifts in it. And when you have talents and gifts make you feel positive about who you were. Blu UKJazzdance out.